Hi, the following podcast is brought to you by Radical Road Brewery, the best craft beer in the heart of Leslieville. Find them at 1177 Queen Street East. That's Radical Road Brewery.
I'm Dan Mangan. I am from Vancouver, BC, Canada. I've put out 6 full records, some soundtracks for TV and film. I also have a music startup that co-founded in 2017. Welcome to the music.
Welcome. Perfect. Thanks, Dan. It's an honor and a privilege to have you join us today on the show. So thank you for joining us. I want to start out with the song Fire Escape. I think we could actually spend the entire hour on Fire Escape, the song, the video, and everything else. But it's funny when I want to talk about the song first and then get to the video, but I heard it described, I can't remember where, as music for the depressed post-pandemic millennials or something. It was just like, but it's so like, I'm so conflicted with the song. It's so good, but I'm so conflicted with the song. Yeah. Can you talk a bit about the song and then let's jump into the video?
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the song was written June 2020. So if you can kind of place yourself, we were in the heart of like George Floyd outrage, protests, and everyone was sort of like, it was starting to sink in that like this lockdown was going to last a while. And so there's this sort of like very dissonance going on where you've got the world exploding outside your front window, and people are in the streets and they're upset, rightfully so. And then internally in your own world, it's imploding. So there's this like exploding and imploding all at the same time, very uncertain time. And I feel like there was a lot of articulation going on, a lot of listening. I feel like particularly a lot of white people were trying to understand the ways that they were aloof or maybe unknowingly sort of benefiting from an unjust society. And so there's like the pandemic, there's sort of like the uncertainty, and then there's this sort of feeling that like, oh man, well, if only somebody could articulate, this complex thing just so, then we'd all understand it, and boy, then we could get beyond it, and we can evolve as a society. And of course, that's sort of part of the discourse. That is what we do, but it takes so much more than that, and so there's like the line in there, what is it that I want to say? What is it that I really want to say? What are the words I've been choking on, hoping someone will articulate? It's like, it sort of feels like, well, certainly somebody should be able to fix this. Not me, I could never fix this, but somebody should. And so there's that, it's, and also like Meet Me on the Fire Escape. It's like I need a familiar kinship. I need someone whose voice I recognize, who can immediately calm me down. And that could be a pandemic thing, meet me out on the fire escape. But it could also be like a party thing, like, alone in a sea of people. I need a familiar sort of presence or something, like, let's get out of here. Meet me on the fire escape. We're going to get out of here. And so that I feel like as though it was a slightly pandemic song when I wrote it, it doesn't feel, and many of these songs are, I intentionally didn't want the album to feel like it was locked in a pandemic or that it couldn't live beyond it. Mm-hmm. And so as I'm tapping into these feelings and these sort of like, facets of existence that was during the pandemic, I didn't want them to feel, I wanted it to feel more timeless than that. And so my hope is that you can listen to the song and feel those things without being like, oh, it's another pandemic song.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, like I said, I'm not conflicted because it's a great song and I love it. It just, I don't know. There's just like, for me, it's almost like an angst that's then alleviated or lifted, or anyway, I just like, and
Well,
the way the
that's,
song build. It's just so well done.
well, thank you. I mean, that's life, right? Like growing up is like learning to be okay with sometimes just walking around sort of sad, for no reason. And you're like, what's wrong? Like nothing's wrong. My life's amazing. I have nothing. But I think that the song, there is a levity to the song. There is a lightness to it. There is sort of like, and that again, like that's the comfort of that kinship. And I think that if there's a message behind this record, is like caring is okay. And, we can be vulnerable. We can be empathetic. We can, that there is strength in that is, I think somehow in the conversation, as society sort of polarizes to the left and to the right, there's this sort of sense that like you would rather everybody lose than the other team get a win. And, this sort of idea that like, God, we can't take a concession of an inch because the other team's going to take a mile. And so I think that this record is, I want it to feel like safe, and I want it to feel like we can be vulnerable, and we're not like, no one's going to stab you, no one's going to pierce you, and if they do, well, doesn't that show their own inadequacy? That they are so unwilling to be soft, whereas the coolest people I know, like the very coolest people I know, are pretty tender people. Somebody who's like putting on a machismo, that shit gets old when you're like 24. Like, I got no time for that. It's just not interesting, or it's weak. That's the thing. People who put on like a false bravado are weak people. And that is like one of the truest things that I've come to know as I get older.
That's really interesting you say that. I'm curious if you ever think about, you talk about, showing a caring side, is actually showing strength. And I don't know why I think of, algorithms, whether it's a social media algorithm, whether it's a streaming algorithm, but, algorithms come into my head when you say these things, because it's like, we've heard over the past few years that conflict sells. Conflict drives usage. Conflict, drives engagement. As a musician, as an artist, do you ever think about things like that, and how can that help you get more plays or streams versus the way you as a human being, as an artist, want to say things, and what does that mean for clicks and streams? I'm curious if that ever comes into your mind.
All the time. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've always been slightly out of step with the zeitgeist, and slightly misunderstood or something. Maybe that's just a universal feeling. Maybe most artists feel that way. But I think that, like I want the world to hear these songs. I'm on TikTok. I'm throwing shit at the wall constantly, trying to see what sticks.
Yeah.
And I've had a few videos really pop on TikTok, and I've seen when the algorithm sort of goes your way and what a drug that is. Like your notifications are just like, there's a little thing, once you get beyond 99 new notifications on TikTok, it just says 99 plus. And it gets to it when the algorithm is in your favor and it's like really popping off, and you're getting like literally like between 5 and 50 new followers like every 20 seconds. And it's just like this stream of like, and you get this little 99 plus. And every time you see that 99 plus in your notifications, it's like a little dopamine hit of like, it's working, they like me, which is terrifying. Like, it's just like what a drug it is and how addictive that is. And it makes you want more. And so what happens is like, okay, we know that when it comes to clicks, when it comes to getting attention online, the things that truly transcend are like the things that cut to the bone, like whether that's just dumb, silly, stupid, or raw, vulnerable, real. You know, the first video that I ever posted that went crazy was a video of my sister-in-law surprising my sister after 2 years of not seeing them on her birthday, and she just breaks down and she's crying, and the video was just went bananas on the front page of Reddit and stuff like that. And of course, I was like, God, of course, it has nothing to do with my music, you know. But that is because the second, like not even the second, the millisecond that we get the sense somebody is promoting something to us, we disengage. And so, you know, like I think like in the 40s and the 50s, when, you know, the madmen were really honing in on like marketing psychology, people were naive to it because it was kind of new. Like we hadn't been indoctrinated. But today, like not even you, like people who are like 12 or 15 years old, they have such an acute sense of when they're being advertised to. It is like a seventh sense.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. And the second something feels like an ad or a promo, it's cringe, right? It's like gone, swipe, out of here. And so the things that really work online are things that are raw and real and emotional and cut to the bone, but have this sort of like deeply accidentally compartmentalized promotion in them. And so the very best TikTokers, the very best social media influencers or whatever, are the people who can do both at the same time. And that's a skill that most people over 40 just can't really possess because they didn't grow up surrounded by it. And so, you know, but there's this constant battle, this push-pull between, okay, I got to post as often as I can because I want people to hear my music. I know my music is fucking good. Like I put a lot of time into it, and I've been doing this a long time, and I've listened to a lot of music, and I know that my music, in my opinion, is better than most other music. So I think everybody should hear it. And so it's now my duty as wearing my business hat to try and get as many people to hear it as possible. And there's like this push pull of the business brain and the art brain. And you have to almost like, when you're working on the art, you need to disengage. You need to get the hell away from social media. You need to go into the cabin, into the woods, and get lost in a rabbit hole and be completely invisible to the world. And then when it's ready, you know, you got to try and be as visible as possible. Now, some people are able, again, some people can like make content while they're in the studio. That's like the last thing I want to do. I want to get lost, you know? So it's tricky. It's really tricky. And to be honest, it's hard. And I don't feel like I feel big feelings of inadequacy, to be completely honest about it. And I just want lots of people to hear this music. And I feel like not enough are. And that's a really, it's a crappy place. It's a crappy place psychologically to be coming at anything, is this feeling of like scarcity or, you know, not abundance. So, you know, when I'm in the middle of a good day, I'm not worried about any of this, but on the bad days, you know, that's when it gets to you.
Good to hear.
Fair enough. Are you finding within the TikTok community the fans leveraging your music? Like I'm thinking of what happened with Mother and Hayloft over the pandemic, right? Well, that just absolutely exploded. Are you finding as people are finding your music, then they're repurposing it for their own? I
mean, I feel like I haven't hit a true critical mass like that. Like I've yet to see someone of like true influence on TikTok use one of my songs or anything like that. Okay. Or like, and that's the other thing. TikTok is so video centric and not creator centric that like I haven't even seen one video using my music go viral, even if it's from somebody who has, you know, 7 followers, which happens on TikTok. You have people who have like 100 followers and they have a video with 1 million views. So that hasn't happened for me. And, you know, God, that would be nice. I mean, the crazy thing about Hayloft was it was from their second record,
Yeah.
15 years ago, and it was and Mother wasn't even on TikTok when it popped. That's how special and unique and rare that is.
That's
And
nuts.
everyone in the industry is like looking at that mother situation going like, oh my God, how do we engineer that for our artists? And you can't. That's like perfect storm shit. You just can't get there, by engineering. It's just all you can do all the time is try and like line everything up with as much integrity as possible.
Mhm.
And when no one pays attention to it, you just have to try again and try again and try again. And then, if you're lucky, every now and then you'll get a little hit. And the funny thing is that like, I think that there's a lot of artists who are sort of disdain at TikTok and disdain at the modern music industry. And I don't want to do that. It's all garbage. But no matter if it was in the 60s or now, every artist has used the tools available to them.
Mm-hmm.
When I was getting going and like, I booked my first tour using MySpace. That was the tool that was available then. If I was 21 right now, you bet your ass I'd be using TikTok. And I think that there's a little bit of like, old man yelling at the wind kind of thing about that. It's like, things used to be better than they are. And they never were. They were never better. They might've been, simpler for you to comprehend, and you were younger and had a more open, I don't know, like the past was never simpler. There's never a moment that was simpler than today. And it might've been simpler because you were a child and you saw the world through a child's eye. Yeah. And as you got older, you gained capacity for understanding complexity. And so it became more complex. And that's just, that's my kids. Like the world's pretty simple to them,
Yeah. You talked about, old man yelling at the wind. And I think, Gregg and I are, to your kid that was just, side of the screen there, where Gregg and I are old men. And we've talked to people about, concerts and touring and the challenges from both a fan, accessing, live music at an affordable price versus, as a musician, as an artist, being able to actually make money touring. And there's been articles that have been written in Canada, in the States, and around the world about artists having issues making proper livable income touring when everyone has been saying, okay, social media is here, people are listening to music and paying $9.99 a month. Touring is where the money is, and then we hear artists aren't making money touring. Then
you hear the pandemic's over, everything's fine, and musicians like the pandemic's over.
No, it ain't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've done two tours since the pandemic. I've done a bunch of like little one-offs and weekends and stuff, but two proper tours that lasted like a few weeks, one in Canada and one in Europe. The Canadian tour lost money, mostly because 6 out of 9 of us got COVID, and there was, an extra $10,000-$15,000 of like having this person up at a hotel for an extra 5 days in their own room, and this person's in another hotel for 5 days in their own room at different times, and then flying them to catch up with the bus. The bus is more expensive, fuel is more expensive. Hotel rooms, instead of being, $100 to $250, are now $200 to $400. Everything is just twice as much as it used to cost. So there's, the cost, and yet ticket prices are kind of the same. Like my ticket price pre-pandemic is not more, was not less than it is now. My ticket price is sort of $35 to $50 or whatever, It's the same now as it was then. And we're like scared to raise it, because you don't want to, and because there's going to be taxes and fees, and you don't want to price people out, and that people are stretched, and you're trying to sell tickets. And so, in both instances of both of these tours, one lost money, one kind of just barely broke even. You have to think like, is touring not a viable model? Like, is it just not viable unless you can pack the rooms? And the only way you can pack rooms is if you have a huge following. And, you know, I know people who have gotten kind of blown up, like bedroom songwriters who have become, through the pandemic, known. And like, as the pandemic was ending, they were like, I've never played a show. Like, you know, and yet they had 1 million followers on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And so I think that that is sort of becoming a model. There, like, most agents and promoters and labels will not work with someone unless their sort of concept is already proven in the market, which is social media. It's like, if social media doesn't like you, then how am I going to sell tickets to your shows? How could I possibly do that if you haven't proven that the world already likes it through social media? Now, what they used to do is develop artists and get them on the road with support acts and all that stuff. Support acts are very hard to come by. It's so tricky. It's so hard. And so I think more and more what's going to happen is that you're going to have these artists that basically don't tour. Like, their first tour is going to be at like a club that holds 1,000 people. Like, that's going to be their first shows, because they're like, why would I mean, they'll play around, or like, why would they tour and lose money before they're huge already? And it's like a weird, the whole model has like basically flipped upside down. But the industry doesn't want to work with anyone who doesn't have a following. It's just, why would they take on that risk?
Wow. I think that's an excellent segue into your startup, Side Door. Fascinating business model. I remember when I think I first heard about it a while ago, and then just sort of out of sight, out of mind. And then with you joining us today, I sort of came back to it. And I think of what comes to mind is, there's a place, my family's up in the Manitoulin, and there's a place in Minimoya called Maya's, and she has concerts every once a week or twice a week. And it's just in her garden, and she makes dinner, and, you know, my mom and my wife love to go to it, and it's just chill and that kind of thing. And it reminded me of that sort of Maya's experience. So can you share with us a bit about, for people that don't know about Side Door?
Of course, yeah. So it's a marketplace for the arts where any space is a venue. So you can liken it to Airbnb for concerts. Essentially, you can create a profile for your backyard, your garden, your living room, your warehouse, your bookstore, any space. You connect directly with the artists in the platform. You build shows together. You can create unique revenue splits for the tickets that you sell. And after the show, everybody gets paid their split, their cut, automatically dispersed into their bank account. So it's basically like it's a hub, you know, where artists and people who are interested in hosting can find each other. And as an artist, you know, when I was first getting going, I played a lot of house concerts, and it was amazing because, you know, rather than spending $150 on a hotel room and getting paid $50 to, you know, or a burger and a beer kind of thing, you would walk away with like $500 or $600 because everyone would throw a 20 in the hat, you know, and it's like, man, I'm making more money playing to 30 people in a living room than I would in a bar, because there's just no overhead. And most of the people who host these kinds of events aren't doing it for money. They want the artists to get paid. So it was a really amazing way to sort of make a living with a very small following when I first started out. But it was hard to find those hosts, and you can't find them on Google. It was all word of mouth. You had to know somebody who knew somebody. So as you know, in 2017, I co-founded this company with my friend Laura, and she had been hosting this amazing house concert series in Halifax, and we just sort of clicked over this shared love of it, and had this kind of shared idea. We both kind of came at the idea separately through our own ways. She was in the music industry, and so it all kind of came together, and we got funding. And I never ever expected that I would be in startup world, but you know, we're a venture-backed company. I've probably pitched like 60 like venture capital firms and another 200 like angel investors, and over the course of 6-7 years. And we had to learn all the vernacular and the business strategy and all that stuff. You have to prove your concept and how it one day will make billions of dollars. And it's a crazy whole other world, but also is not that different from building a following. Like as an artist, you need a team, right? You need a manager and an agent and a publicist and a label. And as a startup co-founder, you need investors, and you need advisors, and you need staff. And so you assemble these teams, and then as an artist, you're trying to gain followers, or fans, or people who listen to your music. It's not that different than trying to get users on your platform. So there's a lot between these two worlds that are sort of copacetic, and my brain, having sort of proved myself in one arena, is it gave me some, I don't want to say credibility, but sort of like a starting point to do so in the tech world. But crazy experience.
Where are we today, Dan, in terms of usage and do you know how often it's being used? Like, where is it available?
Yeah. So there's about 6,000 artists on there.
Wow.
And about 3,000 spaces in North America, mostly in North America, majority in Canada, but the US side is growing pretty quickly. There's like little touches of it in Europe and Australia, but mostly North America. And basically right now, I mean, the sort of method by which people find each other is this thing called a show call, which is where you broadcast your availability. So if you're an artist, you say, I'm going to be in Baltimore looking for a show, and within, a radius of Baltimore between June 16th and June 21st. And then all the hosts in Baltimore will get a notification saying so-and-so's looking for a show. But then you can also take that show call and post it on socials or put it in your newsletter or whatever. And fans can be like, oh, I'll host that, and then they can we onboard them through the process of they can build a profile and contact the artist directly, and, kind of say, I'm looking I'm willing to host or whatever. So it's working. I want to say, I wish it was working faster and better. Because that's just, we have like a finite amount of resources to pay a staff to run this company. And we need to prove that this could not only work for a couple, 6,000 artists, but 600,000 artists or 6 million artists could use this platform. Because that's how you get more funding. And then that's how you develop the platform further. And then, it's this like sort of wheel that you keep turning.
Yeah.
Hopefully it grows and grows and grows. But that's, that's what Bandcamp has done. That's what Patreon has done, or Substack, or whatever, all these companies. You're constantly just proving that you're worth a little bit more investment. And then, hopefully that investment helps you make the platform even better, so you can prove yourself to more people.
It's interesting because I saw on the site, I know Alan Cross has posted some of his shows, has there been any look at moving towards like not moving towards, but including authors and that?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly nothing in the tech that limits things to just music.
That's
right?
What I was wondering when I saw Alan on there.
Yeah, music is the most immediate, most obvious thing, but
sure.
But there's comedians. There's, in Alan's case, it's genius because Alan could do like a soft cedar tour across Canada, but it would be very expensive. He'd have to charge a lot of money, and he would have to come up with like a big presentation. He'd have to develop a big show to make it worth people's money. People know who he is, and they want to hear stories about music biz. So what Alan's been doing, which is so smart, he does shows in people's living rooms and, people's backyards and stuff like that. Most of the time, there's not even a PA. They're small enough. There's just like 30 people or whatever. And he just kind of chit chats, sits in the middle or whatever. People ask questions and he'll just tell stories and stories and stories. And he's like an encyclopedia, right? So as soon as you start asking questions, it just funnels more and more and more stories. Yep. And it's amazing. So he's, he sells tickets for $20-$30 a pop. He'll go, go play not a play, but he'll go and speak like an hour out of Toronto, like Brampton or something like that, and sell it out. Everyone will have an amazing time. He makes like, maybe a couple $1,000, sleeps in his own bed that night. And like the cost of a tour he doesn't have to worry about it. He doesn't have to cost, it's sort of like it's very, very low overhead, high reward for everyone involved. And it's good money, and it's fun for him. He enjoys it, and people love it. Like, the reviews from these events are amazing because it's so intimate, right? You're sitting in a room with them, and you can ask them all these questions about how Chris Martin wrote the song Yellow or whatever. It's like, it's pretty cool. And Side Door is sort of a perfect platform for any kind of artist who wants to do things off cycle or do things sort of like with low risk. When you stage a tour and you put shows on for sale, there's this sort of like, oh God, we really gotta do this. In these shows, often you get a lot of help from the host selling to their community and their colleagues and their family and friends and neighbors. And it's pretty low stakes, it's low risk. You can kind of do things really low cost. And our whole footprint, like our whole sort of philosophy, we have this saying at Side Door, like, if your footprint cannot be wide, let it be deep, like a fox paw in the snow. It's like, if you can't sell 1,000 tickets and fill a theater, have the most memorable night possible with 40 people. And as an artist who's, getting going, it's great because it allows you to leave like a lasting impact. Even if it's small, it's still powerful. It can still be of great value.
Yeah, sure.
That is interesting. Gregg and I have been so fortunate over the past few years to have artists play. I remember the first artist that we asked, Okan, Cuban music, Gregg, that would be a proper
world, but yeah.
Yeah, Cuban, and they just had some instruments hanging behind them, and I said, "Hey, can you play something?" And they looked at each other and said, "Hey, can we do an a cappella?" I said, "Sure." And they performed for, 2-3 minutes. And I told Gregg after the taping, I said, "That's like the most amazing thing I've ever seen." It's just two of us. And we just got like a private concert, It was only 2 minutes long, but it, like you said, create something memorable. And I drove from east end of Toronto all the way downtown to buy and pick up their album just because of that 2-minute experience.
And there's been situations where I played a show in Brackendale, which is just outside of Squamish, tiny little town, maybe like 2,000 people live there, and played at this little cafe. There was maybe like 20 people there. This is early days, maybe 2006 or so. And, had a great time. And then like a year and a half later, I get an email from someone who was at that show, who is starting a new radio station in Vancouver, loved the show and wants to know if I could like write a letter of support for their like license, to the CRTC. And then I ended up playing the opening gala event of that radio station. It was called The Peak here in Vancouver. And then they started playing my music, and it was like, I had no idea that somebody in that crowd was going to like, be able to really help my career in this tiny little town, this little cafe. Same thing. I was playing at South by Southwest, and, playing a showcase. There's barely anybody there, maybe 20, 30 people. And I found out afterwards that the executive director of the festival happened to walk in and see my show. And I just ran into him at a party later on that night, and he was saying lots of nice things. And like Elijah Wood was at one of my shows there. I never saw him, but like, you never know. Like, you really never know. And so like the size of something very rarely dictates the quality in terms of live shows, some of my favorite shows that I've played or have been to have been tiny little shows. But then also there's something, the magnitude of a huge show is pretty special too.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely. Dan, speaking of live performances, love to ask you to perform something. Is there a song you'd like to?
Yeah. Just happen to have a guitar here.
Look at that.
I should do something from the new record. I could do Just Know It, or I could do Fire Escape if that's
Yeah.
on your list.
Yeah, let's do Fire Escape.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the recording of this doesn't have any guitar. So here's a version that's only guitar. Meet me out by the fire escape. It's been 40 nights, 40 days, and I've become uncertain in a cosmic way. I chewed my fingers to the bone today. Oh, won't you come around, meet me by the fire escape. Untie this tight tongue tie. What is it that I wanna say? What is it that I really wanna say? What are the words I've been choking on? Open someone I'll articulate. Oh no, that's some murky water. Alright, we're in the trenches now. I don't know when the party's over. All I know is I'm getting out somehow. Oh, what a fever dream. Meet me out by the fire escape. Join the procession down the alleyway. Oh, our freedom's a joke. We got debts to pay. How many waves until the levee breaks? Oh, won't you come around? Meet me by the fire escape. Untie this tight tongue tie. What is it that we wanna say? What is it that we really wanna say? What are the truths we've been choking on? Open someone I'll articulate. Oh no, that's some murky water. Alright, we're in the trenches now. I don't know how the story ends. Pages just turn over and then turn over again. Redemption's always out of sight and just around the bend. And the outcome doesn't match with what it is that I intend. Like a stack of books that grows and gathers dust beside the bed. Or the disconnect between what people do and what they've said. And I wanna read the news maybe without losing my head. Oh, what a fever dream. Meet me out by the fire escape. It's been 40 nights, 40 days, and I've become uncertain in a cosmic way. I chewed my fingers to the bone today.
Wow.
Hey,
Wow. Thank you.
right on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Wow.
pleasure.
Wow. Well, I'll take it back. Thank you. That was great. So appreciate that. We've got we're down to 13 minutes and I got a whole bunch of questions. So I'm going to try to figure out which ones I want to pull out. One of the ones, it's pulling back the TikTok because I saw it. Not that I'm on TikTok, even though Karim keeps telling me I got to get on TikTok and Snap and everything else, but I'm not because I'm old and yelling at the clouds. The story, I hope you don't mind sharing it. The story of Paul McCartney. I saw this video and I was like, oh my God, people need to hear this. So do you mind quickly sharing that with us? Thanks.
Yeah, I was in Los Angeles recording my, not this last record, but the one before called More or Less. And we'd done a day in the studio. I went to this faux restaurant afterwards. and parked my rental car in front of the faux restaurant. And I was like looking at the car the whole time, but I went to the washroom at one point. That must have been when it happened, but the car was broken into, and window was smashed. Everything was stolen, like my hard drives, my bag, my passport, my laptop, everything, except luckily for my guitar, which was too big to fit through the window. So the next morning, I'm racing around to making a statement with the LAPD, and like wandering around under the bridge, close to there, like asking homeless people about my bag and trying to, find it. And my passport was in there, so I had to go to the Canadian consulate. And it was just like the craziest morning. And my phone was dying. Like it was just, and so I'm all frazzled. But we get to the studio, and the Joey Waronker and Jason Faulkner are there, amazing musicians. And I'm so excited to work with them. They work with Beck and Radiohead and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we do like one take of the very first song, and it was, we were still figuring out what the song was, but we go into the control room just to have a listen back. And as we're listening, this door opens to the control room, and this head pops in and goes, "Oh, sorry." And everyone looks at each other, and he kind of keeps going down the hall. Everyone looks at each other like, that was Paul fucking McCartney. What's going, and luckily the engineer that we were working with had worked with Paul before on another record. So Daryl goes and he goes, "Oh, it's like Sir Paul, hey, it's, Daryl, we worked together." And Paul's like, "Oh yeah." So he comes in and kind of catches up. And it turned out Paul had met most of the people in the room before. So that was like a great icebreaker. And he's like, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're working with this songwriter from Canada." And so I got to tell him that my older son's name is Jude, and why, and I mean, he knows why. And just a, crazy special interaction. He listens, we play him the first, take of the song. And it wasn't like the song was realized. It was like brand new, just a couple ideas thrown in. And he excuses himself. He was there for maybe 20, 25 minutes. And everyone's like, "Wow. Oh my God, Paul McCartney is here." I'm texting my mom and my dad like, "Oh my God, I just met Paul McCartney, crazy." And then like an hour later, I pop out to go get a coffee, and I'm coming back into the East West studio on Sunset Boulevard. And just as I'm leaving, or just as I'm arriving, I should say, Paul is leaving. He's coming out as I'm going in. And it's like this happenstance second, meeting. And he goes, "Oh, it's you. He's been thinking about your song." And I'm like, come on, this is just insane. And we have a chat for a minute. And I mentioned that I had worked with Dave Grohl on something, because I know that he's kind of tight with Dave Grohl. And, we had just a nice little chat. And he mentioned that he thought that the song would, benefit from two sweet cellos and was it two sweet cellos and a piano drone. He wanted to hear a piano drone on it. And so I'm like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, we'll try that out." And then as I'm going into the studio, and I'm just like glowing, because like I had this second interaction one-on-one with Paul, and he told me that he was thinking about my song. And one of the interns there had taken a photo of the CCTV, the security camera that was pointed right at the door where I ran into him. So I would never ask him for a picture. Like, it's just, I think I'm pretty sure that he's publicly said like he doesn't like doing selfies, and it's not my style. I like, anytime I've met a famous person afterwards, I'm like, it would have been cool to have a picture, but it's fine. I just can't do it. I just can't bring myself to ask for it. So I didn't, but I got this completely candid photo of me and Paul McCartney kind of chatting away on the security camera, which was amazing.
That's awesome.
So then, of course, I sent that to my parents, and they loved that.
There you go.
Of course.
That belongs on TikTok, I think.
It is on TikTok, yeah.
There you go. If Dad, just give me a second. You dropped a name here. Let me pick it up. Dave Grohl. Hold on. pick that name up. You've worked with what work did you or are you doing with Dave?
I did the soundtrack for a Simon Pegg film called Hector and the Search for Happiness with my buddy Jesse Zubat, And the director is this guy named Peter Tilston, whose kids go to the same school as Dave Grohl in Los Angeles. And so as we were finishing the film, I had this song that I wanted to put over the credits, and the director really liked it. So we went to LA. I went to LA, and we went to Dave Grohl's house, and we showed him this rough cut of the movie. And he's like the sweetest guy, really, really nice guy. I mean, as you can imagine, everyone says the same thing about Dave. He's very human, very normal, very, very sweet. And he watches the film, and he's like, "Great. So what do you want me to do?" And we're like, "Okay, well, we got this song." And I recorded the bed tracks of this song with my band in Vancouver as drums and, and he's like, "Cool. Well, you got to let me play drums on this." And I was so wrapped up. I loved the bed track that we'd already recorded, and I was worried about, hurting the feelings of my drummer that I had at the time. And I turned him down. I was like, we've already done, I don't think we can do that. It's just like, looking back, it's like the stupidest thing I've done in my whole life. I said no to having Nirvana's drummer play drums on my song, and he's like, "Well, whatever, I'll sing on it." So I give him the tracks, and he tracks some guitar and tracks some vocals. And so the song is called Vessel. It's on my record Club Meds. And if you listen closely on the chorus, there's this like, "Stop, wait, unhand me," and that's Dave Grohl wailing away. So yeah, he's on the song. We put it on the credits, put it on the record. But Foo Fighters had a record coming out that year, and his management was like, "Okay, here's the deal. Dave's going to be on your song, but you can't use him in any of your promo. You can't put it in the bio. You can't put it in the press release. Put it in the liner notes, but you can't use his name to promote the record." So I was like, "Well, fair enough."
Because you turned him down and on drums.
Well, the funny thing is that if I had said yes, if I'd have been like, yeah, of course you can play drums, let's do it. We just would have, I would have gone back down to LA. We would have booked a day in his studio. We would have spent a day hanging out, tracking, recording together. Probably would have gone to lunch, would have cracked jokes, and we would have been friends, That's how I see it in my head anyway.
Yeah, sure.
And, as it is, he was very, he was doing his friend Peter a favor, it wasn't about me. But as it stands now, I reach out to him, and I've got Dave's contact, but it very seldom gets back to me, So, when I'm going to LA, I'll reach out and be like, "Oh, this is what I'm doing," or whatever. And sometimes he'll say, "Oh, no, I'm doing something else," but often, but it is this. When I look back at these moments where I made a decision that truthfully was based in loyalty to my existing drummer and, integrity of the song, I had my reasons. But if I had been not wearing my artist hat and wearing my sort of like, I don't know, life ambition hat or something like that, it would be pretty cool if I had spent a day tracking drums with Dave, That would have been really
you still had
special.
him on doing vocals and some guitar. That's pretty special.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And, I got a good story out of it. And honestly, he's a sweetheart. If I ever meet him again, we can laugh about how I turned him down to play drums on my song.
So are you allowed to even tell this story?
Yeah. It's
okay.
that record was put out 8 years ago.
All right.
So it's old news. And
That's an awesome
I was,
story.
and I was able to tell the story at the time, like when people asked about it, like it was mentioned, but because people found his name in the liner notes, so like, what's up with that? We just couldn't put it, like it just couldn't be
you
at the
promoted
forefront of the album promo. That's all. Yeah.
Fair enough. Dan, as we near the end of this episode, and by the way, thank you so much for your time, and
Yes.
this has been really amazing chat. We have a segment called Lost Venues. And we'd love for you to tell us about a venue that you've got some horror stories, maybe, some amazing memories, maybe, but the venue doesn't exist anymore. I'm curious if you have a lost venue in mind.
Totally. So there was a venue in Vancouver called the Media Club, and it was like small, maybe held 130 people or so. But it's where I played like my first, I mean, I would say like probably 12 of my first 20 shows I ever played were at the Media Club. My first show I ever got paid for, I got paid $30 to be the first of 5 acts at the Media Club. So, you know, I probably played for like 20 minutes or something like that. I was over the moon. Like the idea that someone paid me $1 to play music was like amazing. You know, I was 19 or 18 or something like that. And it was great. I remember my first sold out show at the Media Club felt like, wow. Because up until that point, like when I played a show, I knew everyone in the audience. Like it's just, you invite all your university buddies and your high school buddies and your parents and their friends and all the people you work with at the restaurant. Like that's just that's what you do in the beginning. You invite everyone you know. And then I remember looking out at the crowd at the Media Club and being like, I think I only know like 30% of the people here. And it was like, clearly there were other people that I did not know who had paid to be at the show. And I was like, this is amazing, you know? Many memories at that. And there was a sound tech there named Sean, who went by the nickname Trouble. And I remember Alana, who booked the joint. Yeah, I got to know the bar staff there. And I remember seeing Julie Doiron there for like the first time I ever saw her play. She's amazing. Yeah, it was just tons of memories. I remember actually, speaking of Mother, I played first of 4 at the Media Club with Mother, but at the time they were just called Mother. There was for the first like couple of years they were a band. They were just called Mother, and then there was another band called Mother, so they named themselves Mother, to try and differentiate. But their first record was put out as Mother, and then it was re-released as Mother. Eventually, once they like got signed.
I had no idea.
So on that bill was myself. I think I was like the first of 4, and then it was a band called Lotus Child, which is Zach Gray and Tom Dobransky, who later formed the Zolas, who you guys may know of.
Yeah.
And then there was a band called Castle Project. I don't know what's going on with them. And then Mother was headlining that night. That was the first night I met those guys. Yeah, there's so much history. Vancouver had a moment, like there was a bunch of bands kind of all coming up at the same time. Said the Whale and Hannah Georges and Hey Ocean and Mother. Everyone knew each other, you know. There was people were dating each other. And it was just like a bit of a moment and a scene.
That's cool. That's very cool. I have one quick question that before we wrap it up, that I'd like to ask our guests before we finish is, what are you listening to lately? What's in your headphones that you got on right now? Not that you have headphones right now. What are you listening to that people should check out?
I the other day heard for the first time this artist Dijon, like it's like the mustard.
Yeah.
Don't know if you know him.
No.
He's from Baltimore. I think he might be in LA now. He's incredible. There's like a short film. It's like half an hour long. It's like a performance film of him performing with his band in this like kind of set somewhere. But the record's called Absolutely. I think it's just phenomenal. He's incredible. I barely listened to the record. I mostly just watched this performance like 5 times because it's just so alive and interesting and artfully done. So yeah, I can't recommend that enough. But there's there's so many great songwriters happening right now. Young people. And a guy from Winnipeg that goes by The Secret Beach. Begonia from Winnipeg. She's incredible. Leith Ross also lives in Winnipeg right now. Field Guide, also from Winnipeg. My buddy Noble Son here in Vancouver. Big fan of Sam Tudor, who I think is in Toronto, but is from BC. There's a lot of really talented, amazing musicians kind of on their way up. And I think Begonia, she's got the goods. Like she could be massive. She could be selling out arenas like no problem. If the way goes how it should. She's got the full pop package. It's just incredible. Her voice is like no one else.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah. Pleasure, guys. One
That
nice
is
chat
awesome.
with you.
Yeah, Dan. Thank you so much for this. This has been a treat. If people want to find more of your music, where's and maybe if you're touring in their backyard, where's the best place for them?
A few things. You can hit my website, which is danmanganmusic.com. Of course, I'm on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok with the same handle, Dan Mangan Music. You can also text me if you're in North America at 310-347-4597. And if you do that, I will send you a ping when we book a show near you. Yeah, that's where you find me. I do have a Substack too that I have a pretty tight-knit community on there that I keep in touch with. I do a lot of AMA and do some guitar tutorials and post demos of new songs and stuff like that.
Awesome. Dan, thanhank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, guys. Nice to
Take
meet
care.
you. Have a good one.